Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Headliners is up next, but first, your news headlines. Police are urging drivers to take extra care on the roads following a number of collisions in the past 24 hours. In Northumbria, there's an appeal for witnesses after 2 teenagers were killed in a crash in Cramlington, and a 35-year-old man has been arrested in Oldham in Greater Manchester after a 42-year-old woman and her 15-year-old son died in another incident. Millions of motorists have been on the roads this weekend, with the Met Office warning of the risk of flying debris and power cuts as wind gusts get up to 70 miles an hour in parts of Scotland and northern England. Many rail passengers have also faced dealing with delays and cancellations due to engineering works. The number of people shopping this Christmas Eve is down by 20.6% when compared to last year. That's according to the latest data analysis. Experts are saying that the cost of living crisis and Sunday trading hours are to blame for the fall. High streets saw the biggest decline. That's down 14.8%. However, retail parks actually saw an increase in shoppers, up 6.7%. Tomorrow is set to be the warmest Christmas day in more than a century, with the Met Office saying that temperatures will reach 14 or even 15 degrees. That's after 15.3 Celsius recorded at Heathrow in Middlesex today, making it the warmest Christmas Eve in over 20 years. It means a white Christmas has been ruled out for most of the country, apart from northern Scotland. Ineos chairman Sir Jim Ratcliffe is vowing to return Man United to the very top of the English, European and world football after agreeing a deal to buy 25% of the club. The billionaire, who's a lifelong supporter of the team, says he's pleased that a deal has been done and hopes to unlock the club's full potential. The move will see around £236 million pumped into Man United. The deal also includes responsibility for the management of its operations. And Father Christmas has delivered well over 4 billion presents to children around the world now. You should be able to see live feed now of the NORAD Santa tracker. This is the North American Aerospace Defense Command. They've been monitoring his movements very closely, and it shows that he's just finished delivering presents in Algeria and is now heading to Tunisia. But don't worry, we won't be left out. He's due to arrive in the United Kingdom just after midnight. So kids, if you're still up, get to bed. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying, play GB News. Now it's time for our headliners.
Happy Christmas Eve and welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle. There are no newspapers tomorrow, so what's the point of the show? Well, we thought we'd recap the biggest stories of 2023, and joining me in this endeavour are 2 men for whom Christmas means so much that they are here instead of with their families. It's Lewis Schaefer and Josh Howie. But I mean, we are your family now, let's face it.
Well, if you knew my family, you wouldn't want to be with them.
Quite. You've taken this opportunity to avoid them, in fact. Well, it had to work because Doyle told me to. That's basically
Lewis is like my uncle who my family wouldn't let me be alone in the same room with.
Exactly, that's right.
And you know what it is? You're the younger brother who thinks he's smarter than the older brother, me.
OK, well, let's kick off the show.
Whose mum loves him more.
So as As I say, I thought for this Headliners we would go back to the main stories throughout 2023, and there were quite a lot of big ones. Let's go back to May first. And of course, it was the coronation of King Charles. Lewis, I know you have lots of thoughts about the royal family. Try to keep it festive and upbeat. Don't do your usual curmudgeonly anti-monarchy thing.
Okay, I'll say nice things about it.
Yeah.
He's a lucky guy. He outlived his mother. I mean, I thought she was going to, she was holding on for dear life, hoping to live one day longer than that guy.
She did very well, and I think he was preparing for most of his life for this. But now he's king, and you're happy about that, yeah.
And it's like I remember reading a poem. I saw a poem years ago, Andrew, about a guy who waited till this older couple who waited till they were waited till they was just the right time before they got married.
Yes.
But they were like ancient, and it was pointless because they were about
in
to
their
die.
30s.
No, they're like, and that's like Prince Charles.
King Charles now.
King Charles.
Did you enjoy the coronation, Josh? Did you see any of that?
Well, we were talking about this a couple of days ago, and I was like, when's he getting coronated?
Yeah. Is that the verb? To coronate?
To coronation.
I don't know if that's right.
I
think to crown is
It could have been just one of those days where I had a terrible hangover
You don't
and I
remember
didn't
it?
wake up till a certain point. I don't. You know, it's so weird that looking back on news like this, because we're so immersed within it, that to take a step back, you're just like, that happened this year, or
I know,
how old am I? What is going on?
It feels like a long time ago. This year has dragged. There's been a lot of stuff going on.
It's been, no, it has. It's been an amazing year for Lewis Schaefer. Lewis Schaefer's on TV.
Yeah.
This is unprecedented.
Yes, and of course we got to make the show with John Cleese.
Yeah, that was, and the people out there were watching John Cleese tonight with Lewis Schaefer and Andrew.
Yeah.
And Pete, and you came across very well. You got people are very negative about you.
They are, particularly your followers on Twitter.
I know, it's a nightmare. His fan base are the worst fan base.
Yeah.
They're just like, all I want is Lewis, and why are you being so rude to Lewis, whatever. It's because we know him. You don't know him. If you knew him, you would be rude to him.
Yeah, you don't have to work with him. He's a very difficult human being.
Well,
I gave him this job as an act of charity more than anything. But we're going to move on now to a story from October. Now, obviously, this was a huge story this year. It's obviously horrific and horrible, but we do have to cover it. It was the pogrom against Israeli civilians.
Don't give the story to Josh.
I am going to give it to Josh.
Yeah, because I'm going
Josh
to deal
has
with
lots of thoughts about this.
It's sensitive.
It's a story that I actually know. I've just come off from a 2-hour live show. This is something I can actually talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something I do remember.
What do you think? I can't talk about it? He can't talk about it?
Let's think about this, though. No, obviously, terrorist group Hamas commit this appalling atrocity. Over 1,000 people killed. Now, what for me has been most impactful in the aftermath of this is the way in which the left has completely imploded, and open anti-Semitism expressed on the streets, excuse-making for an atrocity, the equivalent of Holocaust denial in real time, people basically saying, oh, it didn't really happen, or where's the evidence? The evidence is there because Hamas were filming the whole thing and boasting about it.
And coming from the left, coming from feminist organisations.
Yes.
And it's like, to see this kind of cognitive dissonance as you say, in real time, is quite horrific. Now,
I've been shocking, actually.
I'm a lefty, and I've been fighting the far left for years now. That's kind of in a roundabout way what got me on here. But to see it, as you say, now being exposed, and to.
Can I ask you, Josh, though, you've had run-ins with Corbynites in the past, or Corbynistas, or whatever you want to call them. But even
Idiots.
Surely did you? Yeah. But even did you expect some of the things that we've seen over the past?
No,
because it has genuinely surprised me.
There's like 15 million Jews in the world, and so when we're arguing online and whatever, we're arguing against the few Jews that are arguing online are so vastly outnumbered.
Yes,
it's crazy. And today. This thing happened, I didn't talk about it earlier, but there's a skate park near where I grew up, which I skated a few times out. It was not very good. And someone had written, ban Jews, they're evil, as in graffiti, proper graffiti.
Yeah.
That just, the skate world is a very inclusive world where it's all about, for outsiders to kind of fit in, and it's all about how well you skate. It's a meritocracy on that way. To see like that kind of level of hatred.
I think that it's been a real eye-opener. I think since... it's not just that stuff like that. You've seen, Jewish schools having to close. Yeah. You've seen open threats. You've seen, lots of graffiti of that kind. And, Lewis, it's sort of got to the point where we think, is this really Britain in 2023? And, and these are the people who claim to be opposed to fascism, espousing anti-Jewish sentiment. They don't see the cognitive dissonance there.
Because at the same time this is happening, I'm going to say something maybe I shouldn't say, is I actually feel sorry for the Palestinians.
Well, no,
I feel sorry. No,
that's not controversial. We all feel sorry for people caught up in war.
And no, it's not that they're caught up in war. They're in such a horrible position. I'm not saying that they should have done what they should have done and it justifies it. You know me, I don't believe that. But at the same time, their back is... I don't know where they can go.
Well, I think we have to draw a distinction between Palestinians and Hamas.
Yes. No, I don't think we do.
And
I do
not
think we do.
I think we
the
really
Palestinians they're in a bad position. They're hated. They're coming up a very fast second for most hated group of people.
Are you aware, though, Lewis, that Hamas are the worst thing to ever happen to the Palestinian people? They don't represent I agree, I understand that the Palestinian people voted them in 2005.
Yeah.
But then what did Hamas do? Murdered the opposition, murdered the members of Fatah.
Yeah.
And have taken all the aid from various countries and just spent it on rockets and tunnels. This is not
on themselves.
I know
and
that.
They're living in Qatar. They're all billionaires.
But if you eliminate every single person who supports Hamas, you will not make the Palestinians in any better position than they've been.
I'm not advocating eliminating.
No, I'm just saying. But if you did, the fact is I'm defending Palestinians. I can't believe I'm doing this.
But look, of course there are innocent Palestinians out there.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the Palestinians as a group of people are hated so much.
Who? By?
By the Saudis, by the Jordanians, by the Lebanese.
Well, that's because when the Palestinian people went into those countries, they have tended to cause social upheaval in Lebanon, in Jordan and whatnot.
We do have to move on because we've got lots of stories to get through. In March, we had the resignation of Scotland's longest-serving and first-ever female First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. Now, Lewis, this was a bit of a shock, wasn't it? Because she felt invincible.
Yes,
do you know what I mean? She felt like you just couldn't bring her down. And there she is, actually.
Woman.
I think she's shedding a tear, or maybe she's just no, probably not capable of that. But
well, girls do shed tears, and they do cry. That doesn't mean they're weak. Margaret Thatcher cried, and she was the greatest prime minister this country has ever had. I don't know if that's true. But
now, what do you think of that? I mean, particularly as that headline in the Daily Telegraph says, Sturgeon brought down by trans row. It was very. I mean, there were other issues, weren't there, going on with?
I don't think it was the trans row.
No, but it was. I think it was part of it.
I think. Can I just speak, Josh?
Yeah, sorry.
I think
it was a chink in her.
I can speak about this because my children are half Scottish, and I've spent a year of my life in Scotland.
Is their dad Scottish?
Festival. Their dad is not Scottish. Cheap like a Scots, but not. No, I don't believe that. But
Go on.
But this woman, Nicola Sturgeon, I think I didn't like her.
No,
I didn't like her.
Well, very insightful
and she was so. But that's the most important issue.
Yeah, but they loved her. That's the point. In Scotland, they absolutely adored her.
Not a lot of people. A lot of people.
No, they did. I mean, the thing about Lewis is it's very interesting because, when Alex Salmond was in power, there was a real momentum towards the Scottish independence element. And, of course, so many people support the SNP for that single issue. They want an independent Scotland. They're nationalists, right?
Yeah.
But then Nicola Sturgeon started sort of hooking on all of these other mad policies, like let's put men in women's prisons, male rapists in women's prisons,
or the COVID policies, which were way more insane,
much more strict.
Country.
And she's seen a decline now in support for an independent Scotland. She's actually brought the whole ethos of the SNP backwards, right?
But I would say, I don't know if it's her as much as they've got close, they were in power, and they showed everybody that they were pretty useless.
Yeah.
So you have a failing NHS up there, failing educational system.
You know what we need up there? We need it not to be a one-party state.
Of course.
We need to have another party, or at least one other party, so that there is some kind of opposition, so that the SNP can't keep railroading through policies that the public do not want.
Well, that's probably what's going to happen with the next election.
Who are you, Andrew, to say what they should have up there?
I am the voice of the Scottish everyman.
He's a British person.
I am the voice of Scotland.
Because Bruce Devlin's your friend. So because of that.
And I performed at the Edinburgh Fringe on 10 different years.
So did I.
Yes, I did. I met you up there. You were nicer back then. You weren't so bitter.
He was fatter
I wasn't famous like I'm famous. You made me famous.
I think.
Remember how fat he was?
He was fat. When I first met him, he was. I wouldn't say fat. I wouldn't say corpulent or anything. I would say nicely plump. And the thing is,
you like him.
You were nicer when you were plump, and I think that's because you've become cocky because all these women online are sending you messages of desire, and you now, it's gone to your head, and I can see it, you are now completely egotistical. You think you're some kind of sex symbol. You see what I mean? Yeah. That kind of... That's what I'm talking about.
It's when his hair went white.
You need to gain some weight, Lewis.
Or a case could be made, because I'm eating so much meat, it's risen my testosterone level. I'm not gay like you guys.
Well, I don't know. I mean, do you think your wife regrets leaving you?
Oh, but now it's getting personal.
Where did that question come from?
Well, I'm just remembering the time when she left you, like what you looked like. But now look at you, it's like, if I was her, I'd be like, I left too soon as well.
Yeah, oh my God, that's so nice, Josh. Give me a kiss.
Oh, no, really? Are we going to do that? No, let's move on quickly before it gets too X-rated in here. We're going to go on to this high-profile resignation. Now, this time, this happened in June, and you'll all remember this. Prime Minister Boris Johnson stood down. Josh, what do you think?
How was that 7 months ago?
I know.
How was that? Is it 6 months ago, Stephen? 6 months.
It feels really like it was the other day.
That feels like another year.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Not half a year. So, yes, Boris Johnson announces he quits over Partygate.
Yeah, what do you think about... I mean,
now we've had, what, 6 prime ministers since then?
It keeps changing, doesn't it? Now, the thing about this, Josh, is, you know, he was pushed out, actually really not so much with Partygate. I think it was because of the Chris Pincher situation.
That was the nail in the...
That was the thing that sort of... But it does still... Suddenly there's this avalanche of resignations.
It's crazy to see it happening in real time as well.
Yeah.
To see him clinging on... I mean, it felt like he was going to go back in March or whatever. Like, the whole part... Or even before, like, this stuff really started coming out there. It was just, like, incessant, more information, and then it was just that final... It was like... It's like the Great Escape or whatever. You know, or not the Great Escape, when the Italian Job. So when it's like on the... And then that one bird, that Chris Pincher's just on it, and then it all tumbles up.
Absolutely. Just one final thought from Lewis. What did you make? Were you a fan of Boris Johnson? I can't remember.
No, because he didn't believe what he was supposed to believe. And this is what happens when you don't believe stuff. You get kicked out because of small little things. He did not, but he said he believed in Brexit, but who knows? And he said, you know, he didn't really believe in the COVID thing.
Look what happened in the aftermath. We had Liz Truss for about a day. Yeah. And then we have Rishi Sunak. It hasn't been really successful for the Tories, let's be honest.
No, but when you believe something, you will be a leader and you will have a following.
OK, well, there's a very quotable moment from Lewis Schaefer there. He's full of aphorisms.
That's very good.
That is it for part one, but do return after the break. We'll continue going through all of the major stories of 2023. See you in a minute.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel. Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to this special festive edition of Headliners, when I'm taking you through the top news stories of 2023 with the help of my panel, Lewis and Josh. Let's kick off this section with a major story from mid-July now. Now, Nigel Farage obtained a 40-page dossier from Coutts detailing the reasons why the bank decided in March to close his accounts. And this eventually led to the resignation of Dame Alison Rose, the chief executive of NatWest Group, the owners of Coutts. Lewis, this was a major story, wasn't it? And of course, quite close to home. Nigel's on the channel.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, here's the story from the Telegraph. Bank boss says sorry to Farage over accounts, but it really wasn't good enough. And it did kind of confirm, didn't it, that there is a politicisation of a lot of our major institutions, including the banks, who will, deprive you of services if they don't agree with what you think.
Well, it was scary, but I think this was it was the fight back.
Yeah.
Because he said, you know what, a sorry isn't good enough. This is wrong. And for the first time, I think the British people they've had their moment almost.
Yes.
Which is the Bud Light moment, where they just go, no, this is wrong.
And they did, and even people who don't like Nigel's politics were coming out and saying, actually, sorry, this is not good enough. Yeah. Because it's not just the banks, is it? I mean, this is sort of spreading out all over the place.
Well, it could affect us all. And I think people finally saw that this is the virus has spread into our own lives here.
Yeah.
There's no banking thing. You cannot function without a bank account nowadays.
Yeah.
So for him to be, for his opinions, to see it laid out so black and white, but you say that this is like where people, even who don't agree with Nigel politically, stepped up. That's true, but it was amazing to see people also still, because they hate him so much, still siding with the banks. And certainly, like far left people, and you're like, you're on the side of the big bank here because you hate this guy so much.
I saw some mainstream comedians.
Friends of ours are starting. I'm just like,
that is crazy. It's like, do you know nothing of history? Do you not know where this leads? I mean, what happened to having a pluralistic society where we can all disagree? And we might, dislike each other's opinions, but we can have the debate. We can have the argument. Well, you and I agree on nothing, Lewis, but we get on generally. Well, all right, maybe not. But you know my point.
As I've said this, and this is the end of the year, I'm going to say maybe the last time, maybe next year I won't say. There's a war. And the banks are on Team World side, and they're fighting against Nigel Farage, which is Team GB.
OK, well, you always talk about Team World, and I think your New Year's resolution should be to stop using that phrase.
Yes. Well, come up with a new phrase. Why don't you try globalism?
You need a new catchphrase,
No, because globalism sounds too anti-Jew.
What are you doing now?
I'm just saying, come up with a new phrase for what I'm saying, Team World, and maybe Team World is the right way to go.
Tweet at Lewis Schaefer. Give him some ideas, please, because I'm sick of that catchphrase.
I am sick of it too.
Yeah, it's got old, frankly.
Old. Yeah.
On to August now. Although this story has been dominating the headlines throughout 2023. This was the issue of the small boat crisis, and in August there was a bombshell leak that revealed that the government expected the crisis to last until at least 2028.
When they're unlikely to still be here.
Right.
Probably.
But that's OK, because Labour claim they've got all the answers to the small boat crisis.
Well, that's it. Does anybody? Of course they don't. Dear France, for 480 million you can actually stop the boats. This is it. So we're giving them hundreds of millions. Yeah. It turns out they're not doing a lot. They're buying microwaves and cleaning products or something. They're not actually doing what they're doing. Now, Belgium, interestingly, did manage to stop the boats, and they got very strict about it, whereas France, they, for health and safety reasons is what they're saying, they can't step in. But obviously we're giving British taxpayers money to sort this out.
Wait, so what are they spending on, like baguettes or who?
What if French? But yeah,
what do they spend it on?
Garlic,
bunch of onions.
But it's a real issue. This is not going away. The small boats thing, I would say, is is the most visible element of this idea of controlling our migration to this country, seeing people coming off these boats. Now, within there are going to be genuine asylum seekers, women and children particularly, coming from war zones and whatnot. But the big but, of course, there are also opportunists and economic migrants.
There's also, I mean, a significant majority of those people coming in are young men.
Yes, and young men from there. And as at the time, there were a lot of Albanians when this story was going on.
Yeah, there's no war in Albania?
No war, yeah. Well, Albania is not is a safe country. Is not on the red list. Or
so obviously this is a problem. It's weird to think that an island nation should find themselves in this situation.
But the problem is much greater on mainland Europe.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I wonder if, just like we've seen with the trans issue, with various other issues, if the narrative wheel is turning, the Overton window, in terms of, to talk about this stuff doesn't necessarily automatically make you a bigot straight away, which of course it did a few years ago.
No, that's a problem, isn't it, Lewis? So, you know, that a lot of people have said we shouldn't be able to have a debate about this because there is a good side and a bad side. Actually, as with all issues, there's an element of nuance. And I don't know why I'm asking you about nuance, because it's not a concept with which you're familiar. But tell us your thoughts anyway.
I'm against nuance.
You're against nuance.
This is a country. I don't want anybody in my flat. You come into my flat, I'm going to blow your brains out if I had a gun.
You're so American. That's such an American response.
That's an American thing. You either put, there's two options here. You either put up a wall to prevent people from coming in, of some kind of wall, or you
You're talking about your kids.
How are you going to build a wall in your
flat? So you can't build a wall. So what you do is you intercept the boats.
Yes.
And then you do things to those boats so that people don't want to come back.
Well, I daren't ask what you mean by that, but it's going to be more American
militaristic. Maybe you
can
perform a gig to them.
Go out there. Go out there on a dinghy.
That could be
do some of your stand-up.
A true deterrent.
I don't mind making fun of myself, but something needs to be done. If you sit there and say there's nothing we can do,
you know, the years that you used to run that gig, remember you used to do that gig in Leicester Square?
Yeah, Free Until Famous.
Yeah, Free Until Famous, and it was you and basically a bunch of tourists that you'd conned in there.
Yeah.
Immigration went down those years.
Yeah. It was a good tactic, actually. I think you should bring that back. Lewis,
it was a very good
your argument, I'm against nuance. That's
the nuance.
That's quotable.
You know what? They've tried nuance.
Team
nuance. It didn't work.
Going to Rwanda is nuance. The truth is that something needs to be done.
Right, there we go. Well, sticking with August, you'll remember this one. This was the story about Donald Trump facing 4 charges over claims that he attempted to overturn the 2020 election. Lewis, I'm going to go to you on this because you hate nuance, and, you know, there's no room for nuance in this kind of debate.
No, there isn't any room for nuance. The guy hasn't been convicted of anything, and until he gets, well, I guess they try to convict him of something. And actually, this case, there's like cases across the country.
Yeah.
They're trying to bring him down because they are so afraid of Donald Trump. And
are you a fan of Donald Trump?
You know what? Every single day, I become more and more a fan of Donald.
Really?
I hate to say it. I didn't like him in New York. I'm a native New Yorker. I knew him 40 years ago. Everybody knew him in New York, and he was like a dirtbag in New York.
You knew him personally?
Well, I knew people who knew him. I was in the real estate business for a very short. I wouldn't say I was in the business, but I had a job in real estate.
I suppose New York's quite a small place. Most people know each other.
No, well, in a way, from the real estate thing, he wasn't respected. He was a guy who came from Queens. He was like a schlub from Queens. He wasn't like even the top. He was basically a BS.
But the thing is, you think that they're trying to use whatever means necessary to prevent him from running. He might even end up running in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, but what do you think of this, Josh? Because we just had the story about the Colorado thing. You know, they're trying to literally say he cannot even stand. I don't think the Supreme Court are going to go with that, are they?
Well, considering that he's personally placed 3 of those judges.
Yeah, but also, don't you feel it might be a little bit unconstitutional?
Well, not if he has broken the law. Then the law, as part of their constitution, it's very clear that someone who causes insurrection in any form cannot stand for public office. Now, the debate comes. I don't want to get all boring with my nuance here. Dirty word. Nuance.
Don't want to upset Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact is that there is a argument as to whether what happened on January 6th was a riot or whether it was an insurrection.
And whether
that's where the legalities come in.
And whether he was convicted of it, which he hasn't been.
Yeah.
And it's eventually going to have to go to the Supreme Court anyway, because it's not a cut and dried thing. And I guarantee you, it's a law of unintended consequences. Right now, Texas is talking about taking Biden off of the ballot.
Yeah, of course. They'll be back and forth.
Yeah.
there'll be all sorts. It's
but
ridiculous.
British people don't understand the American political system. You've got 50 states. They all have 50 different rules.
Yeah.
And so one can fight. And I think we're headed towards America.
There's actually a film coming out all about that.
Yeah, we're heading for a national divorce.
It'd be great. I'm not there.
I think it's a good idea. Anyway, on to September now. And a headline from The Telegraph. Militant Doctors' Union plan to bring the NHS to its knees during 3-day walkouts. Josh, many stories throughout the year about walkouts.
The year of striking. Because, of course, inflation went up massively. People's wages didn't, although they sort of did, and now actually they're higher than they were because inflation has come down.
Yeah.
But to be fair to the doctors, they haven't had pay increases. In real time, in real terms of money, they're getting paid a lot less than they were 20 years ago.
But do you think that when it comes to essential public services, that people should be able to strike?
Well, this is it, isn't it? It's the right of people to have healthcare to survive, and the right of people to be paid for their work.
Yes.
And so you have two competing rights here.
Where do you stand, Lewis, on the doctors? Should doctors be striking? Should nurses be striking?
The problem is when the doctors are basically working for a state enterprise, which is the NHS. I'm in America. Lots of places in America, you can't go on strike if you work.
But this isn't America, Lewis, and I know you wish it were.
America's better. Let's be honest.
You always come back to this idea that America is this perfect place.
It isn't perfect, but it's a lot closer to perfection. But whether that's the point or not, point is 95% of all doctors in this country are superfluous or are doing harm. We could get on with 5%. No,
again, Lewis, because you always say this, that you don't need to go to see a doctor.
And I go to the doctor.
And what are you meant to do? Google your symptoms is the worst thing that you can do.
No, doctors are good. Doctors are good. You break a leg, you need a doctor. But maybe a few minor surgeries. But at the end, when all the chickens are plucked, the most important thing is to stay healthy by eating an all-meat diet, eschewing, maybe is that the word, eschewing?
Eschewing?
Eschewing, yes.
Yep.
Eschewing carbs, eschewing sugar, and toxic seed oil.
OK, well, that's your nutritional message for the year. Josh looks despairing. And you won't
need 95% of the doctors. They're lovely people. I got the best doctors in the world.
Josh, I'm going to let you have the last word on this one, because can you counter any of that?
Can you counter it?
Yes, eat just vegetables.
There we go. Never let it be said that we are not a balanced show which represents all sides of the argument. That's all we've got time for in this section. But do join us for more highlights of 2023 in just a few moments.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle and we're taking you through the top stories of 2023 because there are no newspapers on Christmas Day to look at. And let's start this section with a story that came out in June. This was a scandal about Phillip Schofield. Josh.
Now, can it really have been June?
It was June,
It was June, wow. OK, well, Phillip Schofield, it came out that he'd been having relations with a younger man, not illegal, and he essentially...
He hadn't told people
I think people... And that guy worked for the TV show.
I never got... This was on the front covers
this
for
was
like the whole witness all over the place.
Yeah.
I never understood why it was any of our business. I just didn't. These are 2 consenting adults, got nothing to do with us.
I think people felt betrayed. I'm not saying that... No, I agree. I don't think that's right, because I think... But I feel like they felt that there was something exploitative, or it could have been homophobia.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But I actually thought it was weird, like the extent of it. I get that people are into gossip and celebrity gossip. OK, I get that.
But, can I say one thing before Lewis steps in here with his nuanced take?
Yeah.
I think you maybe underappreciate the role that Phillip Schofield plays in our lives. Genuinely.
Yeah.
He was a TV presenter when I was a kid.
Yeah.
He has literally been on our screens for 30, 40 years.
Yes.
He is part of the fabric of Britain.
Yeah, but do people expect celebrities to be just morally pure? And, I think if he'd have been having an affair with Gordon the Gopher...
But his persona was somewhat morally pure. That's what I'm saying.
I think Josh is right. It's a very similar situation to Louis Schaefer. All the women out there loved Phillip Schofield. And they didn't want to... First of all, they didn't want to think that he's with somebody, with a guy, or even with anybody else.
But when he came out, everyone was very supportive,
Because you're meant to be now.
Because you can be supportive because all the women are thinking, well, at least it's not with another girl. Like when people out there know that Louis Schaefer has a girlfriend, okay? Their hearts are broken.
For now.
That's why I have to keep it a secret.
And what about when you come out? That's going to be even worse.
No, I don't think it's going to be worse because women still think, well, he'll be my best friend and we can hang out.
And when have you scheduled your coming out thing? Are we going to do that in February?
Well,
around then, something like that.
When will it help my career, Andrew?
I think around then. I think it would elevate your career.
This soon. I think give it a little bit more time.
A bit more time. OK, you need more practice as well. Yeah. You don't really know what you're doing in that respect. Okay,
is that an offer?
It's absolutely...
That's a threat.
Not an offer in any way, Louis Schaefer.
That's a Me Too movement, if I as your boss. Clip that up, send that to HR.
Yeah, Andrew has offered.
Your imagination is running away with you now, Lewis. Nothing like that will happen.
He's going to make me gay.
OK, on to March now.
You could do a lot worse than Andrew.
Match of the day.
Very educated man.
Announced that it would go to air with no host, no pundits, and that was after the BBC had forced Gary Lineker off the air. Lewis, do you remember this one?
I do remember this, and and the point is that Gary Lineker worked for the BBC. The BBC says, please don't make a big deal about you being left wing because everybody who works here is left wing, so we got to keep it down that we're left wing because we have to collect money from British people who don't like the left-wing ideologues of the BBC.
Well, the BBC is meant to be impartial.
It's meant to be impartial, but it's the state propaganda network. It is one of the 3 worst things about this country.
Okay, and the other ones are Royal Family.
Royal Family is the Royal Family, the NHS, and maybe the NHS could be one of the best.
I mean, basically all the things that make Britain Britain.
Yes,
is what
all the things that make Britain. No, the things that make Britain Britain are good things. The fact that the people are so ornery and difficult to deal with. That's the best.
Why did you point at me when you said that?
Because you're ornery and difficult.
Ornery?
Yes.
I haven't heard that word since reading Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah, whatever the word you want to use.
If it's coming from Andrew and he reads like books and stuff.
You're
so.
obstreperous.
I'm obstreperous, am I?
You are
cantankerous.
Cantankerous.
Yes.
Iconoclastic.
Truculent.
I thought obstreperous was something to do with your back.
Yeah.
It's a condition.
Yeah.
Josh, what do you think?
There was a story. Yeah.
There was a story
Josh,
somewhere.
What do you think of this story that hasn't been?
Lineker. We were talking about Lineker.
Yes.
Do you think, by the way, that there is a kind of free speech issue here, that he should be able to say whatever he likes about whatever he likes?
Yeah, I guess so. But unless if it's just whether they're being hypocrites as usual, and that comes down to it. I'm not a fan of the guy. I think he doesn't know the issues that he pontificates about. I think he's a footballer. Talk about football, that's what he knows. Look, you should be able to talk about whatever you want, of course.
Like, we can talk about football, but we don't know anything about it.
But certainly then expect people to come in and say, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
No, the only reason this is an issue is because people are forced by a gunpoint to give money to the BBC. It's taxed, and
you don't have to get a license, just don't have a TV.
No, you do. They make a big deal about it. If they want to watch us live on the air, they have to pay it, whether they watch the BBC or not. So that's why they resent the fact. If Gary Lineker worked for some minor, tiny little station like Talk TV, no one would care. But because it's the BBC ramming down their horrible
I've got to pay my licence fee this year. And I've always been very pro-BBC. I used to work for the BBC and all of that.
Yeah.
But the stuff they're putting out, the fact that some of that money is going to go to BBC News, who I believe have behaved despicably over the last few months. It's painful.
Well, let's move on to a story from December. This was the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award. This was quite a big deal. Josh, what was this?
Yeah, Mary Earp. Sorry. She's a goalkeeper. There she is there. She's got some big, she's got big tendons. And look, she's lifting it up. Normally, when it goes to a woman, they can't actually lift up the award. So that
what are you saying, that women are weaker?
Yeah, I know. Did you see that study that said, we have just done this big study, and it turns out that sex might actually have an impact on sport. That was very funny.
I know, that was a shock,
That was
wasn't
pretty busy. Anyway, so yes, she won BBC Sports Personality of the Year, and various people, I believe, Joey Barton, kicked off and said, wait a minute, is she really the sports personality here? Because surely that would go to, and it's not necessarily about being a woman or a man. You know, there are lots of female sports people who people know.
I've never understood
Serena Williams or whatever.
Yeah, but how is that award judged? You know, sports personality of the year.
Well, it seems like it's judged here according to let's tick some boxes, essentially.
But what is actually is it judged on who's got the best personality? Is that actually what it is?
I don't think any of them have any personality.
But that's my point. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know? I mean, didn't Tyson Fury? Oh no, he didn't win it, right?
Yeah, well, there were people genuine. I think the point went out was give it to somebody who people know. Yeah. And I don't think they really knew this well.
Okay, we're going to move on because I want to get through the other stories. In June of this year, we had Matt Hancock back in the papers, and this time he was being apologetic for his pandemic planning. Lewis, I mean, Matt Hancock's basically been in the papers all year for various things, but this was this was an interesting one, an apology. Sorry is not enough. Grieving families turn their backs on Hancock.
No, it's not enough. Because, first of all, it wasn't a pandemic. It was a panic. Or at best, you could say it was a plandemic. I mean, and
what do you mean by that remark, Lewis?
What I think...
It wasn't planned, was it?
It was been planned for years.
Oh, for goodness.
They wanted to whip people into a frenzy. They wanted people to panic.
It was a disease.
Thank God there's no newspapers tomorrow, because otherwise he'd be in the Mirror.
It is...
GB News person says that there was, you know...
It was the flu, and the flu is barely a disease.
It wasn't the flu, because I had COVID 3 times, and I can tell you it wasn't like having the flu.
You had because you were told you were going to die. That's what happened to me. I had it, and I'm told I'm going to die. And you get a bit of a panic.
You know, people did die, yeah?
People actually died of this, you know that.
My medical qualifications
what are they?
Thousands of hours of watching YouTube thumbnails.
Well, that's better than my GP. My GP doesn't do all of that. Hasn't gone to that effort. I'm going to go to you next time I've got an ailment.
You should.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll be able to help me.
Look at how great I look, and the people can see how good I look. I'm 66 years old. I used to have bleeding gums and psoriasis, and I had a sleep apnea mask. I was in stage 3A chronic kidney disease.
Yeah.
I had gout.
Lewis, there are people who claim that homeopathy has saved their life. Just because it happens to one person doesn't mean that it's a general principle you can apply across the board. Just because you look better now than you did back then doesn't mean that I'm going to go to you next time I've got athlete's foot.
Well, you should, and let me say something about homeopathy.
Okay. Okay.
is that it's probably better than all the vaccines that they've been dishing out to
Okay,
people.
Josh, let's have some balance now here.
Yeah, I mean, he was somewhat redeemed by the jungle. That was it. And then the whole point of having the what is it called? Where they're having the meeting, they're dissecting what happened during COVID and whatnot. The inquiry, yes. Right.
Yes.
I've been on TV for 3 hours. I'm slightly tired. But the whole point of the inquiry is so that when things like this happen again, the idea is that we're better prepared, what mistakes were made, and whatnot.
That's it.
Having rubbish politicians.
Yes.
And it says here, pandemic plan. That was the point. They didn't stick to the plans they had.
No, they
just threw it all out.
They had plans in place.
They panicked.
They didn't even entertain. They should have had a discussion about the idea of let's just shield the vulnerable, let everyone else get on with their lives.
Keep schools open.
They were talking about effectively like a papers, please society where you have to show your papers, like really authoritarian stuff. Yeah. We should not have been doing that.
In memory terms,
what was he doing?
Let me speak. Sorry, I just want to say that as the way that memory works for me, you could see it in real time at the time as they went along with a narrative. And the narrative was pushed by the newspapers, and it's not that people didn't die. There were vulnerable people dying. Yes. But it was all-consuming, and they went immediately, they just took a left away. Oh, no, it became virtue signalling to where suddenly no one was listening to the science. There's proof that they started doing stuff just because Nicola Sturgeon's doing it in Scotland. Right. They don't want to look back.
So this is the problem, isn't it? We knew that children weren't at risk. We knew that even people of our age weren't really at risk. We knew that we now know from studies that the masks did absolutely nothing. Yes. So we were told all
2
of these...
meters.
So we were told all of these... do you remember those ridiculous situations where you'd go to the restaurant and you were allowed to sit there and eat with the mask off, but then if you wanted to stand up to go to the toilet, you had to put the mask on, as though the germs just sort of follow this social decorum.
Andrew, ridiculous. The whole thing was a lie.
Well,
the whole COVID thing. And I want to say something about this Matt Hancock.
Yes.
During the midst of this thing, when there was a total lockdown that he was advocating, he went out and he had sex with his girlfriend.
Yes, he did.
Which, if he thought that this was as bad as it was, then he was putting people's lives at risk.
Yes.
Which makes him a potential murderer. And if he didn't... Potential.
I don't think that's fair, though. I don't think that's fair because a lot of people were doing that sort of thing. A lot of people were breaking the rules. You know what, though? I think what I will say is that the fact that we had this disease with such a low mortality rate, having this extreme response, a lot of people were left thinking, why? What's going on? And that, Lewis, that drove a lot of people down conspiracy theory rabbit holes. Like yourself, you are the embodiment of what happened. And I don't blame you, because people were looking for an explanation.
Thousands of people out there are watching this. But the second thing
Tens of thousands.
Don't
do us down.
Honestly. Let's say
Ofcom's watching.
Listen, I'm sorry, we are running out of time. We have to go to a break now. Don't tweet in and say I've been censoring Lewis. We actually have a schedule to keep to. There is much more to come. Lewis! There is much more to come for this special Christmas Eve edition of Headliners. Please don't go anywhere.
Lewis.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle. This, of course, is our special Christmas Eve show. No newspapers on Christmas Day, so we're going through some of the top stories of 2023. And we're going to kick off this final section by going all the way back to January, when the Daily Mail reported that artificial intelligence could kill us all. And there were lots of stories throughout the year, basically along this same theme, Lewis.
Yeah, I was saying the things that you can't believe, the things that you see. And it's getting... I'm glad it's actually... I don't know what I feel about it.
Well, do you think that we're going to be eliminated ultimately by robots that are learning how to hate us? Because I have absolutely no doubt this is how the world will end. And when it happens, I'm going to be gloating like you would not believe.
I don't think it's going to be robots, but I do...
How are you going to be gloating?
I'll be there saying, look, when they're...
You're going to be dead?
No, just before we all die. You know, so when they're...
Pew, pew, pew! I told you so!
Yeah, that's exactly the scenario I'm talking about. But how can people be so... All we have to do is watch dystopian films. Just watch Terminator Part 2, and you will learn everything about what happens when the robots go in charge.
This is one more panic thing. They want us to panic, like that film, that horrible film that Barack Obama and Michelle Obama produced called Never Leave the World.
I don't know that one.
The end of the world is here, never...
Oh, yeah. Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
No, that's another one that was horrible.
Yeah.
But this is the latest one. It's saying we're all going to die.
But we've seen AI sort of going out of control and sort of... Josh, I'm not wrong, am I? Right? Well, we need to fear... The robots aren't like the robot in Short Circuit, all cute and cuddly that becomes sentient. They're like the robots in Terminator.
Yeah, and we're not helping ourselves by constantly testing it to see if it's going to kill us.
No, exactly.
We're like sort of going, asking it loads, how would you kill us?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I wouldn't know, and then it lies.
So these scientists trying to make dinosaurs again, just watch Jurassic Park and then you know not to do that. People colliding things in a hadron, whatever the hell it's called. You know what I mean, though? Like, don't tell me I don't understand science.
Yes. Where's Stephen Allen when you need him?
No, you don't understand science, but then you're right not to understand it.
Well, so far, it just seems to be able to use it to spot plagiarists or commit plagiarism, and to do photorealistic images with
where it starts.
6 fingers.
Right,
that's how they're
But the problem is, it's the ideology behind it is all controlled by Team World.
I don't want the world
big AI,
to be taken over by calculators.
Yeah, big AI.
Right, we're going to take a moment to look back on the notable deaths of 2023. Lewis.
Who died this year? It doesn't say. I don't have a list.
Notable. There was the guy who sang that song. The song,
I was going to... Wait, can I interrupt you? Because I forgot my line.
Okay.
I was expecting you to say people like Matthew Perry,
Matthew Perry died. That was
I know, you were expecting me to say my career has died, but my career is taking off.
It is taking off, so we'll move on to another story. Let's have a look instead on a story from January. This was when a walrus arrived in Scarborough, and the walruses don't generally go to Scarborough, do they, Lewis?
Well,
they go
maybe
to Scunthorpe.
They go for the summer season.
Do they?
They go for panto.
Wow. I mean, it's a big old beast as well, isn't it?
I've been to Scarborough. It's a fantastic place to go to. It's
if you love walruses.
It's quite surreal as well. Didn't the local council have a firework display for the walrus?
Cancelled it.
Oh, they cancelled it.
Cancelled it.
Oh, I thought they had it for the walrus.
No, they cancelled it. He rocked up. He got a bit naughty, got a bit frisky with himself.
Oh, yeah.
And then he just sort of slunk off in shame.
Yeah.
After everyone had watched him. There it is. That's what I look like afterwards, by the way. Disgusted with myself.
I kind of like his style. He just sort of lay there. He didn't care that everyone was looking at him taking photos. Like, I'll just do whatever I want.
Yeah, he's an exhibitionist. Classic.
I mean, but what do you, Lewis? Are you a fan of walruses, Lewis?
I don't think you can cuddle them. I've yet to see one of those.
Lewis, look, we actually don't have much time, so I didn't. Can I just ask what the hell are you wearing? I wasn't going to mention it, but it is ridiculous.
What do you think I'm wearing? I'm Santa.
You are not Santa, Lewis.
I have presents to deliver to the good boys who are gonna get my calendar.
If you are Santa,
Louis Schaefer.
This has always been my dream.
To sit on his lap.
To sit on Louis Schaefer's lap.
And what do you say to me, Lewis?
That's not my phone.
No, you say, what do you want? What do you want for Christmas?
You're not sitting on my phone.
What do you want for Christmas?
Lewis, I hope for the sake of the nation
I want people to tune in tomorrow.
That you are not Santa Claus. That is not true. That's all we've got time for. Thanks to my guests. Come and join us tomorrow, where I'll be back. See you then.
Did I just?
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. It's going to stay unsettled through the festive period, though it will turn calmer and drier as we move into Boxing Day. Low pressure currently dominating the weather pattern, bringing further rain for many through Christmas Day, but a brief respite and that ridge of high pressure bringing dry, sunny weather for many on Boxing Day. This evening, a mixed picture out there. Outbreaks of rain across southern counties of England and Wales. Showery rain as well, Northern Ireland, Northern England. In between, clearer spells under the clearest skies of Scotland, turning chilly tonight, some frost and ice. Elsewhere, generally staying mild, and those winds just easing after what has been a very blustery and mild Christmas Eve. Christmas Day gets off to a bright start, a chilly start across north-east Scotland. Elsewhere, generally quite cloudy, and this area of outbreaks of rain pushes north and eastwards across England and Wales through the day, turning heavy at times. Rain bumping into Scotland will turn to snow over the higher ground above about 200 metres. 5 to 10 centimetres is possible, giving a white Christmas here, but elsewhere, wet Christmas, mild as well, and breezy temperatures in double figures. After a cold start, Boxing Day morning, it's looking much drier and brighter. Plenty of sunny spells to come, but signs of the next weather system starting to move in across Devon and Cornwall, bringing outbreaks of rain here, and temperatures a little lower for many, but mild air returns as it becomes wet and windy through into Wednesday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Knock again. Hello? Hello?
Hello? Who is it?
We're here for the show.
What show?
We're filming a television show.
This is a medieval castle, you silly man. It's for besieging and sword fighting. It's not for some so-called television program.
But we made arrangements. Strange person.
I am bored of you. Your auntie soiled her knickers, and your mother was a vacuum cleaner. Huh?
Let us in.
I spit on your gonads, you quarter-witted son of a cabbage hunter.
Is there someone else up there that I can speak to?
Go boil your bottom.